thousands of dollars.
Probation until 2032.
Right, and that was something else that I didn't know either. I wouldn't have dated him if I would have known.
That's just silly. That's a lie. She's lying.
Mike says he was trying to live a very clean life to be sure he didn't violate his parole, which is why he got worried a couple of months into the marriage when strange things start happening.
7 years, I guess, prior, I had no run-ins with the police. I meet Dalia, and then within 6 months, I'm probably pulled over, had my house searched, and grabbed at every other area in Palm Beach probably 8 times.
The cops say there's a reason they keep pulling him over. They are getting anonymous tips that he's dealing drugs.
And I'm like, well, how's this happening?
Strange things going on in his life and in Dalia's too. Police say after just 6 months of marriage, she has other men in her life. Men who are helping her with a secret plan to get Mike's money, his condo, and get him out of the way. One of those men is in the front seat of this car.
Your life straight after this, seriously, don't ever do, you know?
And they're not talking about the weather.
Killing somebody, come on. I mean, that's, nobody's going to be able to point a finger at me.
Next, the honeymoon is over.
I was a little surprised. It wasn't like, kill him nicely. It wasn't even like, do it nice, don't hurt him.
Dalia's alleged scheming is about to become a video sensation.
I'm a lot tougher than what I look. I know you're like, oh, what a cute little girl, whatever. But I'm not.
I could just watch the video over and over. It just is one of those clips that never get old.
Okay, this case is headed to a retrial, as they pointed out on the news, and it made headwaves all over for some jury misconduct or something like that. She's getting another crack at it. And Bob, do you think she has any shot in the world of getting acquitted?
I never say never, but you have videotapes and audio tapes of this type of behavior. This is very eerily similar to a case that happened on Long Island in Garden City, which is one of the most affluent areas in the country, of a murder for hire of an attractive wife asks to goes and gets caught up with an undercover cop, and she got 8 1/3 to 25 years in a state prison. She's still there. So this is eerily similar to that case, and I had a front row seat to it because I practice in that court, those courthouses every single day. But in this case, I mean, her defense is that this was all a joke, and that her and 2 other men were doing this and making these videos because they wanted to be reality TV stars. And I just don't know whether or not that's going to be something a jury would go for. But we are dealing this is in Florida, correct?
Yes, Boca Raton.
And, this is the same state that did acquit, Casey Anthony. So you never say never down there.
That is a very good point. And Alex Sanchez, why don't you weigh in on this case? Do you think she has any shot of getting acquitted?
Well, the one thing that, just a little side note, this fellow, the boyfriend or husband that she supposedly, planned to assassinate, he has a long criminal record, and he's been involved in criminal activity and fraud. It always amazes me somebody who has a history like this is they're so offended when they're the victim of a crime.
Couldn't be said better myself. No.
You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, this is like the worst thing in the world. Oh, my God, somebody's committing a crime against me. Oh, this has to be investigated. Well, what about when you were committing crime? But in any event, listen, I'm with Bob. This case seems like a very ridiculously uphill battle. She's on tape, and I wonder where this whole business about, wanting to create a reality TV show. Remember, she went on trial before. She didn't testify the first time, and she never told anybody, as far as I know, about this business about a reality TV show. So where is that coming from now? I hope nobody's putting ideas in her head, especially legal counsel, because I'm very much against the concept, and I'm not saying it happened here, but I'm wondering it's coming from somewhere. It's either coming from her, it's coming from some friends, but it's coming from somewhere. And if we end up in a system where people are fabricating defenses and putting ideas in people's heads, the whole system becomes an absolute joke at that point. And she never said this before. It seems to be coming out of left field. How is this happening? And who's responsible for this? And on top of that, it's not going to be successful because the story is completely preposterous. So I think she's heading down the tubes very quick. But I'm concerned about who may be putting this defense in her head.
It's a very good point. Joseph Scott, so say you.
Well, I don't know that I have a lot to add in this case, but thank you, because now I feel like I need to take my brain out of my skull and scrub it with Comet. I'm not familiar with this case at all until I read it today. And now sitting here and listening to this just utter salacious nonsense, it's a real commentary on where the world has gone relative to reality-based television and the perception that people have of themselves and society in general. I'm always intrigued by these murder for hire cases. I had several friends that were police officers in New Orleans when I was working down there that got involved in these cases where, they would pass themselves off as it was two times in particular, would pass themselves off as these kind of disaffected bike gang members that were found in bar rooms, and got to watch very entertaining indwelling video from vehicles, and it's amazing when you see the cops around the car, and they're just waiting for that key word for the person to say to descend on them when they enter into this agreement. But yeah, this case is just so particularly bizarre. I'm with Alex. I'm wondering if there's something nefarious going on relative to counsel, if they're directing them in a particular way that runs contrary to the purpose of our court system. And I think that's even a bigger problem than just these two idiots.
Now, Bob, if she does get acquitted, or if they get a hung jury, it's not like the second time where she would just walk. They could still retry her because this is brought up on something with the jury. So
correct, yeah.
Right. So
yeah,
in other words,
she has to get an acquittal to walk out the door. Hung jury, they can retry her again. They can hang a jury 10 times in a row, and if the prosecution feels that they can still prove their case, they can continually bring it. John Gotti was tried a number of times before the federal government decided to give up. She has to get an outright acquittal of the charges to walk out of that courtroom a free woman. So this is not going to be a Fostoria situation where there's any appeal by the prosecution.
Although,
and wasn't John Gotti Jr. also tried several times?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. On the hung jury issue, Bob is right. The prosecution could seek to retry the person over and over again, but usually when you get to the third,
right,
hung jury, fourth, really at the maximum, the prosecution either gives up or the defense puts in a motion to just, stop any further trials from taking place. That's, I think, is what happened to John Gotti's. He went on trial over and over again, and finally they just gave up and said, we're not going to put him on trial anymore. So that's I think, the best you could possibly hope for in this case.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that one. So we'll see what happens in that case. But I think they will get her as she is on house arrest. Tragedy in Kentucky of the 6-year-old boy. Let's hear some sound. We'll talk on the other side.
I'm Vicki Dorr.
And I'm Rick Van Hoos. A 6-year-old boy is dead and a community is in shock after a bizarre and unthinkable crime.
Logan Tipton died early this morning after police say a man broke into his home and stabbed him repeatedly with a kitchen knife. Ronald Exantis of Indianapolis is jailed tonight facing murder and burglary charges.
Logan's father heard screams for help and then rushed in to stop Exantis. Police say Exantis admitted to the crime, but they do not know his motive. Prosecutors say he does not know the Tipton family. His attorney tells WLKY that her client is mentally ill. This evening, hundreds gathered to say a tearful goodbye to the boy. WLKY's Morgan Lentis was there.
One community member described what happened to Logan Tipton as a senseless, random, evil act of violence. And many here say if it can happen in Versailles, Kentucky, it can happen anywhere.
Thank you all so much.
The 50-yard line. It's a spot Logan Tipton knew well. He'd only started playing recently, but he loved football.
I don't see why that 6-year-old kid deserved that at all.
On Monday night, the lights in this stadium weren't on for a game or even a scrimmage. Instead, they illuminated the faces of a community crushed to learn of this player's passing.
You don't see a crime this brutal involving innocent people, and that's what this is. This was an absolute random act of brutal violence.
Hundreds filled this field, many carrying candles. They prayed, stood in silence, and even sang one of Logan's favorite songs.
Yes, Jesus loves me.
If the cold bothered the crowd, no one spoke up. Many in attendance say this vigil was about one thing: supporting a family going through an unthinkable tragedy.
6-year-old boy can't even do nothing, and he don't deserve that at all. And I apologize for all the stuff that's happening for that family.
It's a pain they know no one can fully understand.
I'm very sorry, and I know how I don't know how it feels, but I bet it feels really bad.
Logan Tipton's father spoke with the crowd here tonight. He told them, "I love each and every one of you." Reporting in Versailles, I'm Morgan Lentis, WLKY News.
Thank you, Morgan. An account has been set up in Logan's name at the Kentucky Bank in Versailles for anyone wishing to donate to his family.
Alex Sanchez, your thoughts on this tragic case?
What can you say? It's a horrible, horrible event. People have been characterizing it as a, brutally evil crime. But, the guy is a complete lunatic. Is being a lunatic the same as being evil? I don't know if people are born and say, hey, you know what? I want to grow up and be a mental case. I want to have hallucinations. I want to have all kinds of psychiatric disturbances. Nobody wants to live like that. But there are people, whether it's genetic or whatever, they've got some serious mental disorders, and sooner or later, in one way or another, they act out. And this guy, unfortunately, committed this awful act. I don't necessarily look at this as evil. I look at this as an unfortunate event and the result of severe mental illness. And again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Our society is doing very, very little to address the issue of mental illness. There's not enough counselors out there. Whatever counselors that are out there are being paid, next to nothing to service, a gigantic population. And the government and society in general needs to understand that we need to pay attention to this issue, or these type of events are going to go on and on and on. I feel sorry for that kid. And before I go to sleep tonight, I'm going to say a little prayer for him.
There you go. Very, very good point there. Bob Chalk, your thoughts?
Yeah, Alex, it's a very, very, very good point. I mean, we as practitioners in this business, we deal with clients, we deal with complaining witnesses, we deal every day with people who are suffering from some on a small level, but many on a very, very severe level of mental illness that the criminal justice system and specifically the jail system cannot and does not assist them in getting help and medication that they need for when they're released to get put back on the street, so that they can be safe for other members of society. And the lawyer for this case said immediately that he questions his client's